Hello and welcome to Tag Talk. Tag Talk is an opportunity to talk to you a little bit about the Adjutant General Directorate in Human Resources Command. You can check HRC online and see what's in the Tag Directorate. And one of the things we've done in the past is brought in a couple of the division chiefs to tell you what's really under the hood when we talk about the Adjutant General Directorate. And one of the great divisions we have is actually our transition division. And transitioning soldiers probably know even more about it than some commanders and S1s out there. And so really this is just an opportunity to inform the field, educate commanders, and educate our S1s out there. So really glad to have the division chief for transition assistance here with us today and your sergeant major. So Mr. Walter Hurd, can you talk to us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Well, first off, I'm honored to be here today sharing this with you and with everybody else, and I'm honored to be here in Human Resource Command in general. I am an old soldier. I began as a soldier at a young age preparing. Spent 25 years in uniform, blessed to do all the great jobs, enjoyed it, and then came here right about the time that Human Resources Command came to my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, and really excited to have been running this program for about 11 years or so now.
Wow. Well, thank you. And thank you for your service and really being a soldier for life. I appreciate it. So speaking of soldiers,
right.
Your battle buddy, Sergeant Major.
I've got a great one right here. He can introduce himself, but I've known a lot of Sergeants Major over the last 40 years or so. This is one of the best of the best, so introduce yourself.
I'm Sergeant Major Alex Rushton. I've been with TAG D and in the Transition Division now for about a year, and HRC for about 3 years. I'm really glad to be part of the team. Never thought I'd be in a situation like this, being an infantry soldier, but I absolutely love it. I'm very blessed to be on this team with Mr. Hurd.
Good to have you.
All right, so a couple great battle buddies and talk about, soldiers and taking care of soldiers. So we talked transition division, and so I hear TAP. So what is TAP?
Well, let me tell you, I said it's a great place to be and a great job to have, because what the Transition Assistance Program does is really help fulfill a moral obligation that our Army has with about 100,000 soldiers a year. So it's one of the few Army programs that everybody eventually touches. I tell my counterparts in your division that all soldiers don't get promoted, they don't all get a medal, they don't all PCS, but they all at some point take off that uniform and put on a version of this uniform. So TAP is congressionally mandated, it's driven by Army regulation, but the real key is that moral responsibility we have to help 100,000 of America's finest every year get ready for the next chapter in their life.
So you talk about getting ready for that next chapter, and I guess it gets to the point of why is someone going to transition assistance through the process and through the program, not just because it's congressionally mandated, but why is it so important for that transitioning soldier?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that really is the million-dollar question. But the fact of the matter is that the transition from that uniform to this is hard, because it's really such a dramatic change. So what we do is we begin with an assessment early on, well prior to that transition date, to let the soldier begin to think about what they want to do. And that's one of the keys I'll talk about here in a minute, that timing.
Yeah, got it. So kind of pull Sergeant Major into the conversation, and if you were talking to a soldier, how does this actually work?
Yes, ma'am. The process is very simple. It's like any other thing that we do in the Army. It's very systematic, but one is leader involvement. Company commanders, first sergeants being involved first off so that the soldier understands the program. Second part is once they decide to make the decision to transition, it is given at 24 months if you're retiring, 18 months if you're just ETSing. However, when a soldier, once they make that decision, they need to go and contact their TAP office, and they will begin their individual counseling. And at that point, then that's when the process begins, and then they will have their appointments made through TAP counselor from that point on.
So you mentioned, commanders and first sergeants, but it's really, you have a number of transitioning junior soldiers. How do we make sure they know and are informed about the process?
Educating the leaders, ma'am, really. Again, first sergeant commanders, but battalion, brigade, division. We have the TSMs out there that can educate during LPDs, OPDs, things like that to educate the force. And that trickles down through from the leaders top down, all the way down to squad leader, team leader, to the soldier. So that's another good process.
Got it. So you mentioned TSMs. What are the TSMs?
Transition Site Manager for each TAP council or each TAP center.
And so we should find those at the installation level.
Yes, ma'am.
And usually if you have a welcome center or a soldier center, that's where it is on your installation. So if you're not sure, leaders, I mean, go introduce yourself to that installation office that has that TSM and make sure that you're educated, about it.
Yes, ma'am.
We started off with Soldier for Life. I mentioned, thank you for being a soldier for life. I saw posters where it used to say Soldier for Life TAP, and now I've seen a transition to TAP, and I hear you had an anniversary with the program.
Well, we did. So for our 30th anniversary, and in the looking at Army programs, 3 decades is massive.
Right.
So we've been around for 3 decades, and what we try to do as this 30th birthday is to really get back to the basics. And the basics is TAP, Transition Assistance Program. That's what Congress calls us, that's what the regulation calls us, that's what it is, even though we certainly support being a soldier for life as an intellectual and emotional piece. It's really a transition assistance program. That's where that's the moneymaker for us. Mm-hmm. So with our 30th year, we thought that'd be a good time to get back to the basics. I want to highlight, if I can, just a couple of things Sergeant Major said earlier. He mentioned timing. So we use the term go early and go often. So the key to success with TAP is just that, to go early and go often. I tell people that transition assistance is much like physical training. You don't wait until 2 or 3 weeks before your PT test and start doing push-ups and sit-ups for 8 hours a day. It just doesn't work that way. You really start months, maybe years, and you do a few minutes every day of push-ups and sit-ups. So on PT test day, you're ready. And transition is the same thing. You don't just wait until a couple of months out and start thinking about it. You really start that process 24 months if you're going to retire like these two, or about 18 months if you're going to ETS, so that way the soldier and their family can begin to think about 3 critical questions that I'll cover if you don't mind.
Sure.
And they need to prioritize these 3 questions. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? Or how much money do I need to make? One of those questions is going to be more important than the other 2, and it's going to drive everything else. That's not something you can ask yourself on Friday and have figured out, ask yourself on Monday and have figured out by Friday.
Right.
So again, that time and multiple iterations of TAP, that's why we've designed it that way, to help the soldier wrap their head around it. And statistically, we know that soldiers who begin the process early are twice as likely to get a good job as soldiers who begin the process late. So I know leaders want to help soldiers be successful. That's why we're in the business, because of soldiers. And a key way to do that is to start this process early.
Got it. So you heard it here first. Go early, go often. Commanders, first sergeants, leaders, you have to be involved as part of taking care of our soldiers and our commitment to those who raise their right hand and volunteer to serve. So whether they're transitioning out after their first term or retiring at 30, this is a program for everyone. But because it's a program for everyone, does every person have to do the exact same thing? And are there virtual and in-person options?
Those are a couple of great questions. So it is a program for everybody, active, Guard, and Reserve. ETSing, retiring, demobilizing, whatever the case might be. If you're on federal orders for 180 days or more, we owe you assistance in plugging back in. So if you're on an installation like most of the Army is, you can go to the installation TAP Center. The Transition Services Manager is the leader of that, and they can coordinate with the company, battalion, brigade commanders on that information. If you're away from an installation, we, and only the Army, by the way, has a 24/7 virtual center. So it's live with real counselors with master's degrees. So if it's midnight on Saturday night and you're in Des Moines, Iowa, and you want to work on your resume, there's a counselor with a master's degree who can talk you through that, or your budget, or your MOS from my current job in the Army to a similar or dissimilar civilian job. So that's a big moneymaker for us. In fact, that virtual center is the biggest TAP center on the planet. and sees about 25 or 30,000 soldiers a year. So huge.
Yeah, that is awesome. So world-renowned TAP Center.
We're the world champs right here.
Absolutely. And so if you want to check out the world-renowned TAP Center, one way you can learn more about the Transition Division, you can start with Human Resources Command website, follow it to the Adjutant General Directorate, and Transition Division is one of the divisions. But you can also be found on a couple other different social media sites. So could you close out by telling us how can we learn more?
Right, like everything else in modern society, just Google Army TAP. You'll find the TAP webpage that she alluded to. It talks about how to connect an employer to a soldier and a soldier to an employer. Talks about how to sign up for the virtual classes, if that's convenient, or your local installation. It allows you to ask questions, lots of information. So our webpage, like a lot of web pages, has a wealth of information. We're very active on Facebook, very active on LinkedIn, a little less active, but somewhat active on Twitter and some other things as well. So with minimal work on the internet, you can find out a lot about us. And if all else fails, make a phone call to your local installation TAP center or here at Human Resources Command, and we can plug you in very quickly.
Absolutely. Well, I cannot thank you enough. Number one, for what you do every day for soldiers, and for your service. And so thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join me for a quick TAG Talk.
Happy to.
And really, again, the purpose of TAG Talk is to inform the field, make you smarter about what's in Human Resources Command, what's in the Adjutant General Directorate, and tell you a little bit about how we can help you because we serve you. And with that, have a great rest of your day.